Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Green Flag. I'm your host, Lukas Wacker. With me, as always, we have Kyle Cushman, and welcome to another episode of the Green Flag, but not the Speed Week edition. We are fully into the NASCAR season now.
Still in Daytona, though.
Still in Daytona. We still are at Daytona International Speedway, but to the road course this time around for the entire three top flights of NASCAR series there with the Trucks, Xfinity, and Cup Series taking to the road course. As soon as tonight, we have the Truck Series race going on, probably when you're watching this, to be honest. But nonetheless, we've got our fantasy preview for the Cup Series a little bit later on, and just some news and notes to catch you up over the past couple of days, as there's just been some minor stuff. It's not been anything too crazy there. But before we get into all that, how you doing today, Kyle?
I'm doing good. Yes, I was super pumped for this weekend because big fan of the Daytona road course. Given what we saw at the Busch Clash earlier, I'm excited to see what we get from some of the lower series as well, because the Truck Series, as we've talked about many times, is stacked. I cannot wait for that race tonight coming up in a couple hours, really. And then there's some good storylines to follow the rest of the way. So I've got the early lead in fantasy. I'm a little nervous going into this one. I'm not going to lie. I got 3 out of my 6 drivers picked out. I'm going to wait and maybe play a little bit of defense depending on what you go with on that one. But no, I'm feeling good for this week, and I'm excited excited to get into things here.
The best form of defense is a good offense, Kyle. So
That's
hopefully
true.
You're not
That's
going
true.
too defensive here. But let's get into what the news and notes have looked like over the past couple of days since we last talked to you on Tuesday. We got the ratings back from the Daytona 500 to try and wrap that storyline up. Not the greatest, but maybe not as bad as what was initially anticipated for the peak numbers and kind of the general numbers that averaged throughout the entire event. So it averaged 4.83 million viewers for the entire rain-delayed Daytona 500, and then it experienced a peak of 8.48 million people at the beginning of the race, and then we all know how that happened with the big wreck on lap 14, the rain delay with the lightning strike, and it just kind of unwound from there, 5.5-hour rain delay. You imagine you would lose a lot of viewership with that. And when they restart and the race ends past midnight on the East Coast, it is understandable why this one didn't have the greatest ratings for Fox for the Daytona 500. And this race had a lower rating than the Darlington race when it came back last season in May for their return to racing event, and then the Las Vegas spring race as well. Kind of, you wouldn't think the Las Vegas spring race would rate that well, but the Daytona 500 was less than that. So not great on that side of things, but I think Fox can take a little bit of positivity away that the peak numbers were a little bit better than the 2019 Daytona 500. Obviously, the 2021 with then President Donald Trump attending the event, that had a little bit of a boom and a little bit of a rise in the viewership as well with that added storyline. But when we look back at 2019, it was better than that when it first started. So that's encouraging signs. Hopefully that audience that was there for the 500 can continue on to this upcoming weekend here at the Daytona Road Course, Kyle.
Yeah, you got to take these with a grain of salt because, as you mentioned, the rain delay completely sewers any kind of viewership there, and retaining the audience for that long is impossible. So it's just kind of salvaging what you can. And it's always frustrating because the 500 is supposed to be the biggest race with the most viewership, everything there. And when you get those big rain delays, it completely skewers the numbers you get from it. But I think the big thing is, as you mentioned, the opening peak viewership was still pretty solid there. Would have been interesting to see how that would have gone, especially with how the race was duller than in years past, to say the least. Some silver linings to take, but for the most part, it's just taking everything there with a grain of salt. We saw some positive numbers from stuff earlier in the weekend, like the Busch Clash and the duels had some slight upticks as well. So
Parker did well too.
Yeah, exactly. So you got to take everything with a grain of salt here, but I think the important thing is that we're still kind of trending at least positively, if not slightly here. And that's better than what a lot of different sports organizations have to say right now. A lot of people look at viewership and just see it going down and everything like that and just assume it's a bad thing. But NASCAR's viewership really hasn't been on the steep decline that a lot of other sports have been on. So you got to take everything and look at the grand scope of things. And so still seeing some of these positive signs is big, but the rain delay was killer. We knew it was going to be. It was just about how bad the numbers would be. And they're pretty rough to look at, but you got to dig a little bit deeper as well.
For sure. There's so many added storylines coming into this one. You can understand that viewership was there.
Yeah.
You just can't sustain that.
The bigger thing for me is just looking at the second race of the season, and because we know the road course will go on whether it's sunny or raining. Right now it's looking like it's going to be sunny, which may be a little bit disappointing given how last week went at the exact same racetrack at the exact same time. But
he loved Florida weather.
Yeah. The big thing, of course, is just going to look at second week of the season last year versus this year and see what kind of numbers compare, because it's going to be a very different track as well. You're not going to have the big storyline of Ryan Newman and everything like that from last year as well. So I'm fascinated to see that, less so than the actual raw numbers from the 500.
For sure. Hopefully that they do get a good attendance and audience for this upcoming weekend. The Busch Clash was a good sign of things, hopefully, of entertainment to come here with the Cup Series and the other two series as well. So we'll keep an eye on that.
One other thing I just want to add, because I just remembered it as well. I do know a fair number of casual fans tuned in during the regularly allotted 500 time and thought the Busch Clash that was re-airing then was the 500, which
I wish.
For us is something.
I wish that
very
was the
silly.
real thing.
Yeah, I know you would. In fact, I got a text from somebody making fun of me for Kyle Busch winning, and I was like, "You're about a week late on that one." So it is unfortunate.
It wasn't me. It was not me.
It was not him. It wasn't him. I'll say that much. But no, it's just. For the casual fans, they're not going to know the difference. If they kind of tune in for like 5-10 minutes once a year, they're not going to know the difference really. So it's unfortunate to see, because I did see a little bit of that on Twitter as well. Honestly, you can't say how much of that factors into anything like that, because those people probably aren't going to be tuning back into the race when it restarts at like 9:30 or whatever it ended up being. But I did see that a little bit as well, which I thought was kind of funny to note.
For a lot of people, Kyle Busch was the 2021 Daytona 500 winner. Just not really the right thing, unfortunately. But props to Fox for putting on the road course instead of the actual duels, because that would have really thrown people off. They would have been like, oh, they're going back out on the oval. They just need to put
something in the corner that makes it more obvious that it isn't the actual, like,
During the rain, they're like, let's just switch it to the road course, everybody. Just pack the cars up and put them on there. But yeah, we'll see how the road course on the actual race for this weekend is going to shape up here. We got the fantasy preview, so stay tuned for that just a little bit later on. Daytona on the road course side of things as well. They're making a bit of an adjustment to the backstretch chicane after what happened in the Clash. It was kind of chaos back there with basically turning into the preview of the Bristol Dirt.
They were taking quite a few liberties with the bus stop.
Yeah, they were kind of making it a straightaway in some senses of the imagination, making it as straight as possible. And they kind of cut the corners, to say the least. If you were in Formula One, you would get probably a 5-second time penalty for some of these guys for the amount of corner cutting they did. But to just try and limit that this weekend, NASCAR has added a little bit of concrete there, and the turtles, the famous turtles that NASCAR has become synonymous with on the Roval at Charlotte. And
I'm not gonna lie, I did spin out on those turtles in iRacing this week in the Truck Series. Still got a top five there, but I won't lie, the one spin I did have was messing up on the turtles, but those things are killer. So I'm excited to see how those actually do play in at the bus stop there, because if you do try to take that extra liberty there, you're gonna get sent flying straight. So kind of similar to last year, how we saw some people just go and destroy their front splitter there on the wet grass. I think we might see some maybe similar stuff if people try to take some liberties with the bus stop there. So we'll see those debut tonight with the Truck Series race. So and we did see a decent amount of liberties taken in the Truck Series race last year as well. But I think it's a smart move, because having dirt all over the place, we saw with the Truex track and everything like that, they needed to do something there, because otherwise people would just keep doing it and then we'd have the same issue and over and over again. And I think this is probably the best way to do it, but I'm fascinated to see how it impacts lap time, to how it impacts the actual driving, crashes, all that kind of stuff.
The Rolex 24 for 24 hours, they didn't have an issue, but for NASCAR for about an hour and a half, we have to change the track.
You can do some extra stuff with a stock car than you can like a Daytona prototype. I know Almandinger was talking about that, how you can take that little tire in the dirt in a stock car and be fine with it. In a Daytona prototype, you might be losing a little bit more, but I did think that was pretty funny as well.
Yeah, it's just NASCAR is just chaos essentially, and sports car drivers are a little bit more conservative, is what it kind of comes down to. So that kind of does it for the track layout this weekend. Nothing else has changed. They're going to still have that front stretch chicane as well. So we'll see how that all unfolds this weekend. Should be hopefully an exciting race. Hopefully the Busch Clash was a sign of things to come here with fantasy.
Hopefully.
The Daytona road course that we're going to have previewing a little bit later on. I just really want to drive that home because it's going to be a good one. Probably the biggest bit of news on the NASCAR side of things over the past couple of days was NFL star Alvin Kamara joining forces with Ryan Vargas. He'll be sponsoring the number 6 car for JD Motorsports this upcoming weekend for his juice brand, the Big Squeezy. It's kind of like your juice bar that's become really famous and everything like that. So he's going to be, he's the guy behind the Squeezy bar, the Big Squeezy. And we'll see how that partnership maybe unfolds for the rest of the season. It's a great opportunity here. Kamara was at the Daytona 500 as well, was very active on social media, just showing that his presence, and he's a big fan of the sport. He's not just here for, the cameras and everything like that. He's actually a fan of the sport, and it's great to see that we're having outside of NASCAR athletes really taking an invested interest in the sport. And a big star like this, New Orleans running back Alvin Kamara, is a pretty high profile one after the season he just had. So pretty big opportunity here for Ryan Vargas, getting TikTok and Alvin Kamara. This guy is just on a roll with sponsorship, and a great opportunity for himself and just for NASCAR as a whole here with Kamara coming in as a sponsor, Kyle.
Yeah, I think Ryan Vargas is just showing all the young drivers coming up right now exactly how to do things in terms of sponsorship. Alvin Kamara was on Twitter during the 500, made note of how Michael Jordan and all these Pitbull as well are getting into ownership. And he was like, hey, how do I get into this? And somebody replied being like, hey, you can sponsor a car for a race and kind of like own a car for a weekend kind of thing. And one thing led to another. And then all of a sudden we have this deal for where Ryan Vargas needed sponsorship for this weekend. They didn't have anything lined up for this upcoming weekend. And all of a sudden they go from potentially being an unsponsored car to having an NFL superstar sponsoring their car. And it's exactly the kind of the best parts of social media for these drivers is being on there, building up a fan base, and getting these kind of opportunities. It's something that's kind of crazy to think about, how in a week you can go from driving a car with no logos on it to having an NFL superstar on it. So it's awesome seeing guys like Alvin Kamara get involved in NASCAR and be genuinely interested in the sport, wanting to get involved in it, and here helping out somebody in Ryan Vargas's career, sponsoring them. We'll see if anything comes later down the road, if this is just a one-off, if they do more down the road. But for at least this weekend, it's very, very exciting, and super excited to see them get on the track on Saturday.
Are we going to have to purchase another Ryan Vargas t-shirt here with this one, Kyle?
We'll see. No commitments yet. No commitments yet.
What if it was a Chicago Bears superstar that was going to be?
No, 100%. I do got to remind you, Alvin Kamara did beat down the Bears in the playoffs, so it is a little bit still of a sore spot. So it would have to be a pretty big result, or I don't even know if they have any merch out yet or anything like that. But the car does look pretty nice as well, I got to say.
If they do come up with some merch, we're gonna have to put on a finishing position for this one as well. Top 20, top 10, top 10.
If it was a Chicago Bear, we would go like top 20 or something. But Kamara beat the
So
Bears.
If it was Trubisky sponsoring the car, you would.
If it was not Mitchell Trubisky, no. No, if it was Mitchell Trubisky, I need him to win the race, but that's a whole different other ordeal.
Oh, baby. That's awesome. Good clip there. Good clip. All right. So you heard it here first. Ryan Vargas, top 10. And if there is some merch to be had, Kyle will purchase it. So we'll see what happens on that front, which it's just a great opportunity here. All jokes aside.
It is awesome.
It's pretty cool to see. And I really hope that, other athletes are taking notice of somebody like Kamara and think that this is a plausible opportunity that for them to grow their brand or grow something that they are a part of, or there's a whole bunch of foundations and brands that the athletes are somewhat invested in. And I think it's a great opportunity here to kind of no other sport can really have something like this. What NASCAR or the motorsports has, with a brand can sponsor a car and then that's kind of your thing for the weekend. That's your baby. And it's just a great marketing opportunity. So hopefully other people take notice on that one. Next little bit of news is John Hunter Nemechek will race for select rides this season for Sam Hunt's Racing's number 26. This 26 car has basically got all the craze here lately, it seems. It's a good thing for John Hunter Nemechek, just trying to get as much seat time as he can. His first race will be at Dover in May, so a little bit to go before we see John Hunter Nemechek in the Xfinity Series for that team. It's interesting that he may be not looking at a JGR ride in the Xfinity Series for that 54 car because he is aligned with Toyota now, so maybe a little bit of an interesting note there, but a good opportunity here for John Hunter Nemechek and for, more importantly, Sam Hunt Racing to get a guy that is more high profile than what they are particularly familiar with. We've got Santino Ferrucci coming into that car a little bit later on this season, but for John Hunter Nemechek, that's a great guy for them to just try and put into the car and see what they can get the most out of.
Yeah, this was a fascinating one because we knew just with the Ferrucci signing and everything like that Sam Hunt was going to be getting more of that Toyota support. But with somebody like Nemechek getting involved, you would assume that there's at least a decent amount of TRD support there, just given the kind of the profile that Nemechek brings there. And yeah, interesting as well that there's nothing currently lined up with that JGR 54, which is definitely something to note there. But yeah, this is just Nemechek getting in as many rides as he can, which is good to see. I'm a little bit surprised that maybe there wasn't anything with JGR figured out for this season with a 54 or anything like that. But I'll be very fascinated to see what kind of performance level they're at with Nemechek behind the wheel, because then that's going to be a great barometer for everybody else that gets in that vehicle, because you're going to have somebody that was a pretty solid Cup Series rookie last year and somebody that's won races at multiple levels here in NASCAR as well. As kind of a teammate, as somebody that's running races in that car. So if somebody is performing up to similar levels as Nemechek is, that's going to be a big thing to look at. Similarly, if they're way behind, maybe that shows how good Nemechek is. Maybe it shows other things. But fascinating little signing there for Sam Hunt Racing. If you told me last year they'd be getting Santino Ferrucci and John Hunter Nemechek in their car this year,
Crazy.
I would have laughed at you. But kind of crazy how things can go in a year, and excited to see that Dover debut for Nemechek in Xfinity this year.
I think he ran pretty well at Dover this past year for front row, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on that.
He had a handful of solid runs in those kind of like mile to mile and a half tracks. So obviously Darlington, that opening weekend back, is the one that stands out there. But Nemechek's a fun little name to follow along there, and he's going to have the high profile ride in the Truck Series, and we'll see what he can do kind of in more of a mid-pack ride in Xfinity this upcoming year.
For sure. Let's move on down to the Truck Series here. Just a couple of interesting driver notes. Parker Chase, a former guy that raced with Kyle Busch in the Rolex 24 in, I guess it was 2020 then. He's going to be driving the number 51 truck for the KBM organization here this evening at the Daytona Road Course, as well as COTA later on this year. So just a couple of these filler names, and he's a pretty good road racer. He's running in the Rolex 24, so he's got some experience here. Hopefully he can keep the truck in one piece here and go out there for his NASCAR debut here for the Truck Series tonight. I'm excited to see what he can do in that 51 truck, and a COTA later on this year as well. You got to have some of these guys for that filler role, because KBM doesn't have that one guy right now that they're looking at to bring into their pipeline for a full-time ride, it seems. They've got Chandler Smith. They've gone with John Hunter Nemechek as that other guy. They've lost Christian Eckes here, so they don't really have that guy that was in the 51 truck like they've had in the past with Eric Jones, Christopher Bell at moments as well. Just they don't have that guy in their pipeline, so they have to go a little bit more on an all-star lineup, I'd say, for that 51 truck throughout the season here. Interesting that Alex Tagliani wasn't in this one for this race tonight, because he ran the Daytona Road Course past race
there
there
might
for the
have been
trucks,
some
but
quarantine issues or something like that if he's based in Canada going down to the States or something like that for right now. But yeah, Parker Chase was not a name I was expecting to see. I was expecting to see a veteran, kind of a road course runner, something like that. But Parker Chase, he has one NASCAR start under his belt last year at the Daytona Road Course in ARCA with Chad Bryant Racing, finished 10th there with kind of a mid-pack ARCA team there. But a big opportunity for him here. Young driver as well, just 19 years old, and getting a big opportunity here with KBM. If you can impress, that probably leads to more opportunities down the road, but definitely was not a name that I was super familiar with going into this weekend, and wasn't a name that I was expecting to see at all on the 51 schedule for the season. But hey, opportunities arise, and he's going to have a couple decent road course races here to show what he's got here in the Truck Series.
For sure. And then the other one, Connor Daly will make his return to the NASCAR Truck Series. Obviously, IndyCar driver there. He made that switch over to NASCAR for a one-off event last season. He's going to be doing it once again here at Las Vegas Motor Speedway for Nice Motorsports in the number 44 truck. That's pretty impressive that he's wanting to stay in NASCAR to some capacity here, just getting his feet wet a little bit. Obviously, he liked that first experience, or else he wouldn't be coming back. So Nice Motorsports with that kind of all-star truck that they're just bringing all these legends from other sports or former big names. They're just putting all these guys into this truck, and credit to Nice Motorsports for just doing this entire 44 truck, which is putting all these guys. Trevor Bayne, we've seen James Buescher, this past weekend didn't get off to the green flag, but nonetheless, it is a great opportunity here for Connor Daly to see what he's got once again. I'm having trouble remembering how he did in that first race. I think he
just pulled it up here. It was Las Vegas last year, and he finished 18th.
Okay, so not too bad, for a race that he didn't have any practice with as well going into it. He's got a little bit more seat time underneath his belt here. It's the same racetrack, so that should bode well for him as well. So what do you make of the move here for Connor Daly coming back here for another one-off race?
It's awesome. I love seeing the cross-discipline stuff, and Nice Motorsports, at least from things we've heard, is from specifically Brett Moffitt. They're looking to be more competitive this year, not having the massive rotation of drivers that they had last year. They still got the rotation truck in the 44, but they got 3 full-time drivers there, which is going to be big for just kind of the consistency of the team this year. And Connor Daly getting back in the truck at a track that he's ran a race at now in Las Vegas. Exciting to see. They've got a young guy in the truck for a few of those races in the 44 in Jet Noland, who's going to be in it this upcoming weekend. He's only 17, so excited to see what he maybe does as a potential up-and-coming prospect. But a fun little truck there in the 44. Had James Buescher unfortunate start and end at the same time there for him last week. I hope he gets some more races this year, and hopefully we get some more other interesting names in that 44 throughout this year.
For sure. Roush Fenway Racing as well. This is a pretty cool story that they've been designated as a carbon neutral organization. As a result, Ryan Newman will run a special Castrol all white paint scheme. I'm not sure if it's this weekend or not, but at some point this season he will be running that scheme. So it looked pretty slick as well, just a plain white scheme, but it had a pretty good visual impact to me at least. And really great to see that Roush Fenway is the first, I believe, of any of the NASCAR big organizations that has been designated as a carbon neutral organization. And we've seen Formula One recently trying to get into that kind of territory as well. That's a big goal for them over the next decade or so. And it's great to see that NASCAR has already have a pretty historic organization here. Maybe not the highest caliber as of current races, but previously at the beginning of the 2010s and in the late 2000s, this was a pretty high-profile organization with really star-studded drivers. But pretty cool opportunity, or pretty cool designation here for Roush Fenway Racing here.
Yeah, absolutely. And anytime that you can kind of have those labels involved with motor racing is fantastic to see, because one of the big things you look at with motorsports and everything like that is kind of the carbon footprint of it all, less so the actual racing itself and more just kind of the travel that's involved a lot of the time. But having a team like Roush Fenway, which, as you mentioned, is a pretty notable team. They've won championships in the past. They're still at least a notable team in NASCAR, not what they used to be, but still definitely a notable team with a big name involved in Jack Roush. And having that headline is huge. And so the paint scheme itself isn't anything spectacular, but that's the point. It's supposed to commemorate this really cool achievement for Roush Fenway, and excited to see them on the track after. I think it is this weekend. I'm not certain. Yeah. You would think that it would be the weekend after they get that designation, but very, very cool to see. Ryan Newman going to go out there with the Castrol as well, sponsored car. I always like how those Castrol cars look. So a little bit sad that we're not going to get the nice red and green on the scheme. But again, more important stuff than the actual scheme or anything like that itself, going carbon neutral. Really cool to see from Roush Fenway here.
Speaking of paint schemes, Daniel Suarez has got a new one here. They just keep
Pretty spiffy
pumping
one.
them out at Trackhouse. There's a vote here going on which paint scheme they want to go with, but the big thing here, Camping World will be a sponsor for Daniel Suarez at some point in time this season. They haven't announced an official timeline on when those set races will be, if it is races plural, but we'll see what happens with that. Pretty good looking paint schemes. Camping World, I'm just a sucker for blue and gold paint schemes. I just think that they are beautiful. No bias here, but Ryerson does have that as their color scheme as well. Care. So, but yeah, I just love the way that these Trackhouse paint schemes are looking. They've just absolutely knocked it out of the park with the look. So props to them. And it's pretty cool for Daniel Suarez. He's got some pretty high profile sponsors coming on board with him. And I think Daniel Suarez is here for a long time with Trackhouse. It seems like they're very happy with him. Pitbull obviously investing. They said Daniel Suarez was a big reason why he did that. So I don't see Trackhouse wanting to make any changes here for quite some time, even if Suarez's performance isn't up to par of what maybe is expected. But I think Suarez does have the potential to really find himself here, find his groove in the NASCAR Cup Series. Let's not forget he's a former Xfinity Series champion, for crying out loud. So I think that this is pretty cool for Daniel Suarez, and I'm really happy that he's finally landed on his feet somewhere, and a pretty cool sponsor here with Camping World.
Yeah, a nice little ad there in Camping World, who has done some great stuff in the NASCAR ranks, of course. But yeah, no, a nice looking scheme, regardless of which one they go with there. Both look pretty solid. And another big sponsor on board for Daniel Suarez. It was interesting to hear kind of that confirmation from Pitbull that Daniel Suarez was a big factor for him getting involved financially with the team. We kind of speculated about that when Pitbull was announced as being a co-owner of that team, having that relationship there with Daniel Suarez, the only foreign driver currently in the Cup Series. I thought that was a big factor, and clearly it was. And so it's great seeing more and more companies get involved in this new team. I'm excited to see as we get to the mile and a halves here what Trackhouse's actual performance level is. They impressed a ton at Daytona in terms of the raw speed being right there on par with RCR, who is their aligned team. And going into the road course here, we know Suarez is a pretty solid road course racer. So excited to see what they can do this weekend and into the future here with some big sponsors on board, some nice paint schemes, and a really solid driver.
For sure. Las Vegas is going to have 20% capacity for their March 5th to 7th weekend here for the Trucks, Xfinity, and Cup Series. So there was, rumors on whether or not they were trying to appeal to the Las Vegas kind of board that there is potential here for fans, and they actually had the deal go through just as recently as I believe 2 days ago. So it's just gonna be great to see some fans whenever we can get that in the stands. It's just a good sight to see. And we saw 30% capacity at the Daytona 500. This time it's 20% with less grandstands for Las Vegas too. So it should be a notable sign of cheering fans when if Jase Elliott takes the lead, or when they say the most famous words in motorsports. Those will probably get aroused out of the fans. But nice to see some fans here, at least for the Las Vegas race. And Connor Daly's going to be in the race as well for the Truck Series. So maybe he's going to bring some fans with him there for that event. So pretty cool to see that. Dale Earnhardt Jr. has joined the ownership group for the Music City Grand Prix for the IndyCar Series coming up later on this year. Really great to see Jr. going into the IndyCar side of things here. We're just trying to be a guy that's going to push this event because it is such a huge thing added to the calendar for IndyCar this year. And just adding to the names that we're going to be seeing in IndyCar this season. Junior's not obviously racing, but the fact that Dale Earnhardt Jr. is associated with this in any capacity is a great thing to see. Jimmy Johnson, I'm sure that they'll probably hit each other up at some point in time over the weekend. How that race occurs, but really great to see that Junior is going to get on the IndyCar side of things just for this one-off event. But he's been really pushing this Nashville kind of thing with motorsports and having the banquet for the NASCAR Cup Series there. We should have a NASCAR race there. He's obviously a big promoter of the fairgrounds on going back to there, as I'm sure many people are. And it just shows that he is really serious about having Nashville as a key role in the motorsports in North America scene.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. And kind of goes along with kind of the cross motorsport discipline, whatever, that I was talking about a little bit earlier with Connor Daly. And obviously not in terms of the actual on track right there, but we know Dale Jr. has been pretty vocal about wanting to return to the fairgrounds. And I'm sure getting involved in Nashville there in the street course there might mean something down the road for NASCAR, maybe trying things out with the street course, because we know that that NASCAR has been interested in adding a street course to the schedule, or for Dale Jr. just getting involved in Nashville for the race itself. It is great to see. It's going to be another big name involved for a race that I know a lot of people are excited for. It's going to be a really, really star-studded grid. We know that for that race. I'm super excited for that one. It's going to be a good time. And yeah, really cool to see Dale Jr. get involved more on the IndyCar side as well.
For sure. All right, the last little bit of stock car news to an extent here. Michael Waltrip is returning to racing in the SRX
How about that?
Racing Series.
Was not expecting this one.
They were pretty SRX on their social media channels were hyping this one up. American Daytona 500 winner. I'm like, oh my God, Jeff Gordon.
It was Kenseth.
Oh really? Yeah. Okay, I thought it might have been Gordon.
I thought Kenseth was going to be doing like the what is it? Slinger, I think is the track that they got on the schedule that he's been like synonymous with for much of his career. I thought it was going to be like announcing him for like the All-Star car, something like that, but was not expecting another kind of like full-time announcement, and definitely wasn't expecting Waltrip as well.
Yeah, a guy that's been kind of out of the racing scene behind the wheel, that is, for about 2 seasons, I believe it is now. So it's just great to see that Michael Waltrip still has this passion to go behind the wheel, and it's just for fun at the end of the day. This isn't the best. This isn't the Cup Series here where you're out there racing, just trying to keep the car in one piece. This is just for fun. It's 6 races over the summer on Saturday night. Like, you can't get anything better than that. And it's a great opportunity here to just kind of get back into the swing of things for just a couple of weeks. So really great to see that Michael Waltrip's going to be doing that. I believe this is kind of after Fox's schedule has kind of run out as well. For the majority of it, it's going to be right there or near it. So he'll have to do a little bit of double duty, I'm imagining. So we'll see how that all plays out with broadcasting and getting behind the wheel. I'm just super pumped for this series, man. I don't know. I just hope I'm not going to be let down like I was the 500, but there's just so many great names in this, and Michael Waltrip is a fun addition there. Obviously, the stock car ties to Tony Stewart and Ray Evernham, and really great to see Waltrip is going to be back behind the wheel of a race car in the very near future. Formula One. We have had our first 2021
Finally.
Challengers released. McLaren and AlphaTauri this morning. I actually kind of stayed up for that late last night to watch the reveal. And I must say, props to AlphaTauri for not waiting about an hour and a half before releasing the look of their car like McLaren did. That was a little bit of a brutal kind of experience to try and sit through that, to try and just wait for the actual look of the car. And after all of it, McLaren's car is basically a copy and paste from last season. So unfortunate on that respect.
At least.
The livery, but the floor is the big thing that people have taken to notice, as it is significantly more streamlined near the back of where the engine is, and with that Mercedes engine in the back of that McLaren now. They've had to make some adjustments there, and I'm pretty sure that's going to add a lot of speed there to that McLaren with just decreasing that size of the floor back there. And then AlphaTauri was the one that maybe made the biggest shift. They did make the biggest shift of the two that have been released thus far. A pretty nice looking livery, I'd have to say.
Yeah, I'm a fan.
Made a bit more of a change, went with more of a navy blue look at the front, and then kind of had the pinstripe look throughout the middle section of the car to the rear. So I like it. I think it maybe is a slight upgrade than last season. I'm not going to go and say that it's beyond what last season was, because I like last season, but I think the blue nose is what's going to do it for me there in terms of how I like it. I think the midsection of the car is a little clustered on how they put the sponsors on it, but besides that, I think the color scheme and everything is just a great look. I do miss the old Toro Rosso ones with the kind of chromish blue and the red, but this is a nice alternative here with AlphaTauri. So what do you make of the two releases there? First with McLaren and then AlphaTauri. Just Daniel Ricciardo also making like his debut, I guess, for McLaren in that respect as well. And we got Yuki Tsunoda. I did not realize how short this man was standing next to Pierre Gasly. That was one of the funniest things I saw. But nonetheless, a pretty cool looking car for AlphaTauri and McLaren as well. We don't know anything internally get back on track to see what the performance is like. But the looks is all that really matters right now.
Yeah, poor Yuki is 5'3", so short king. But no, I'm a big fan of that AlphaTauri look. I really liked the car last year. I like what they did with the car this year. Kind of gives you like a kind of like a retro kind of design in like a modern car. I'm a fan of how it looks, and I'm a big fan of their driver lineup as well. I'm excited to see them on track this year. For McLaren, I don't think anybody had like crazy expectations for the release or anything like that. It is interesting seeing kind of some of the floor differences and seeing how they've been kind of concealing some of the aerodynamic differences on like the bottom of the car and some of the releases and whatnot. But I'm a big fan of that scheme. The orange and the blue works really well. It's something that's difficult to kind of go with. You have to be a little bit careful, not go over the top, but I'm not heartbroken that it's a very similar livery to last year. So I think 2 for 2 positive releases so far. McLaren waited very long to actually get to the point for theirs. I'm glad when they just kind of get to the point and don't leave you waiting. I think the big one that we're all waiting for is Aston Martin, because that's going to be the huge difference in terms of livery. What's the next release we got coming up? I know we've got a few coming up in the next week. I think Red Bull's is like next Tuesday or something like that. That might be the next one, but
I can pull it up here on their Twitter. So the next one is Alfa Romeo here on the 22nd, so Monday. Then after that, we've got Alpine. I'm looking forward to that one as well, seeing how they do the French flag and how they incorporate that with what kind of tone of blue. That's the biggest part for me. I know that they're going to have the red and white, but what kind of tone of blue they're going to go for that. Mercedes, I'm looking forward to as well. That's the next one on March the 2nd. Aston Martin there on the 3rd. Williams on the 5th. And then Ferrari is waiting all the way till March 10th to release their car. The team is releasing on February 26th, so I don't understand what's going on there. And then Red Bull, I believe, has announced when they're going to be doing it.
February 23rd here. So
February
next
23rd.
Week, yeah.
And then Haas is the last one. They usually wait pretty late into the going to release their car, sometimes even into pre-season testing. So yeah, Alpine and Aston Martin, and even the Mercedes one I'm looking forward to see if they go with the black.
There's been rumors about a dark blue Williams return as well. So if they go with that, I'm interested to see how that goes.
I prefer the lighter blue because it is.
I do
different
like the
than
lighter
the rest.
blue, but if you go with the classic Williams, but
I want Red Bull to go with a bit more of a royal blue. I'm tired of their one that they have now. I think they need to spice things up. It's
the last
too
couple
navy.
Toro Rossos were unreal. So if you go something like that, but
yeah, we need to royal that blue up. Ferrari, you can make a couple of changes, I think, to it. I do miss when they had
the car in its entirety. The livery less so.
I would say the livery, I would want like a little bit more white in it. I think like their 2016 one, I think, was pretty decent. Haas, I'm interested to see what they do because there's been some rumblings on BWT, the former Racing Point sponsor, joining forces with either Williams or Haas. So we'll see if the Pink Panther does return in some capacity to any of those teams.
Have been boring, so hopefully we get something.
I would love to see something nice. I don't want to see a gray base. I want to see a white base with the Haas.
Whoever really wants a gray base? Like
nothing. That's the problem with the NHL reverse retro jerseys. For a lot of them, they have gray as their base. So Alpine's a fun one. Mercedes, if they go with the black livery as well. I would love. I saw a concept of black and silver like mixed together like
they've had a lot more time to come up with something. So
I really think that would be pretty cool if they did half and half. I think that would just be the perfect mixture, and they complement each other with those colors. And of course, Aston Martin. I really, really want to see that neon yellow return to an F1 car and with that dark green base. Like they have to have some sort of neon green in that, in my opinion, for that to be a success. So the look is the most important thing until they get on track for preseason testing there. And then now it starts off in Bahrain as well with the calendar. So that's about 5 weeks away-ish from the lights out there for Formula One. So pretty interesting on that side of things. But we don't have to wait as long for Drive to Survive, Kyle. It's coming back for season 3.
Yeah, it is.
March 19th. They released a teaser trailer today. I'm following it all on Twitter. The behind the scenes on getting the final edits done and everything. And they announced it was finally completed and they released a little teaser there. Nothing really to kind of write home about, but it is such a great series. They've done such a great job with it. I hope they do make a little bit of adjustment this season so that they keep it a little bit fresh. But I'm interested to see how they've handled the whole COVID situation. And, they were rearing up and gearing up for Australia last year, and they had to shut everything down, and they had to wait months and months and months before getting back underway. So I'm very intrigued to see how they handle it with how many episodes they do and what weekends they selected to really cover, which teams for those weekends. Unfortunately, it was not Mercedes for that Secure Grand Prix weekend because, oh boy, what a story that would have been. But there's so many highlights from this past season in Formula One. Just was really great season overall, and I'm very excited to see how they handle that.
Yeah, it's the release date that we were kind of expecting when you look at the schedule. It's the last couple of years it's been released like 1 week before the first weekend of
the preseason hype.
Exactly. So releasing on the 19th, cars on track for the 26th, 27th, 28th that weekend makes sense. So we knew it was coming. It was just a matter of when we would get that first teaser. We saw absolutely nothing in that teaser to actually break down. But just the confirmation that it's coming 1 month from today is fantastic, because you already know I'm binging that in like 24 hours. Like that series is getting done the first day it's released. I'm getting hyped for the season.
We're going to give a full review on it too. We are going to watch it and we're going to give like a ranking out of this show.
Okay.
Like we have to.
I like it.
This is not the crew here, Kyle. This is Drive to Survive. All right.
I can rank the crew without having to actually watch it.
Don't even get me started on the crew.
I told you.
Okay. It's not the greatest. I'm not finished it yet, but it's
not for our demographic as well, to be fair.
Well, it's not. Well, whatever. Drive to Survive is the right one.
Let's talk about the good series. Yeah,
the good one.
I can't wait. And the best part about it is that it's a series that is interesting, regardless as to whether you know everything about Formula One or literally nothing. And I think that's the beauty of the series. It gets so many more people interested in the sport, watching the sport. The opening race of the season as well is at 11 Eastern as well, so it's a very watchable time for people in North America, even if you're on the West Coast, because then it's still a pretty decent start time, better than 5 a.m. I'll say that for you.
All right.
But no, I think it's a great kind of week there to lead up to the opening Grand Prix. It's such a phenomenally well done series, so I can't wait to see what they've done with COVID, all the storylines from last year, everything. I'm sure it's going to be another absolute banger.
We very rarely see motorsports done right in sort of the Hollywood side of things, and this series nails it. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how they represent this past year. It's crazy to think that they're on their third year of it already. Like I remember when it first came out in 2019, whatever it was, just like the sheer popularity behind it. People are like, oh my gosh, Formula One seems cool. And it's really helped fans, if you're not a motorsports fan, actually become a Formula One fan and become somewhat interested in the sport. Maybe not a diehard fan, but it's definitely created a lot of great exposure for the sport as it's rapidly growing amongst many, many people worldwide. And you can see why when they invest in something like this, Netflix, the future, streaming, it all makes sense on that regard. Hopefully, I would love to see NASCAR, IndyCar do something very similar to that over here, because there is a lot to be had over just the schedule and me put that away for NASCAR because it is so many races, so many weeks consecutively. But for IndyCar, I think that there is a popularity interest there for it as well, especially with this season coming up. I think they should totally capitalize on the big names that they're going to be having in there and do something similar, maybe Amazon Prime Video or something like that. They do one of their series with it, but just a cool opportunity there that Formula One has totally steered this entertainment side of things right in the right direction for motorsports. So the last little bit of news here, Pietro Fittipaldi will remain as Haas's F1 team test and reserve driver for 2021. We saw him in a reserve role for taking over for Romain Grosjean after his crash at the Bahrain Grand Prix last year. He raced for the final two races of the season at Sakir and Abu Dhabi. Put in a shift. He did his best. You can't expect too much from him in terms of making it a competitive car when it is not competitive. And he's going into an F1 seat here. Pretty much cold. He still had the practice sessions and whatnot. But I'm happy that they're giving this guy a second shot. He did well in the virtual GPs as well. So we'll see on if he ever gets a shot here. He'll obviously do select practice sessions throughout the season. And if, God forbid, anything happens to a driver this upcoming season, Pietro Fittipaldi will be in to take that spot at Haas. So great to see that he's going to be getting another shot here this season.
Yeah, there were some rumors that maybe he'd come back to IndyCar with Dale Coyne, but as soon as those seats kind of got filled up, specifically by Romain Grosjean coming over with that kind of Rick Ware partnered entry, it seemed like it was pretty obvious he'd be returning to Haas, especially given everything that the Fittipaldis have been doing with the virtual Grand Prix as well for Haas. So it was just one that made sense. He did a fine job at the end of last season, having to step in very unusual circumstances. So it's nice to see that relationship continue with that team.
For sure. That does it for the news and notes for today's episode.
Oh boy.
It is time for the NASCAR Daytona Road Course fantasy preview presented by nobody, but it is what it is. I'm still up in the air for a couple of spots in my lineup currently. But before we get into that, go join our league. It's not too late. You can always join whenever you want. The green flag on the NASCAR app in the fantasy section.
Link will be in the description.
For sure. We've got, Kyle's got the one up. He's got the head-to-head battle 1-0. That's the first time he's ever led in fantasy.
3 points.
Overall, he's got me in fantasy as well by 3 points. So this is a comeback weekend for Mr. Wacker, and hopefully that is the case. I'm sure that there's going to be a couple of crossovers here with your lineups or with our lineups here. But I think
2 for certain at least. I think probably 3, but after that, I think it's open.
There's a possibility of having a wide variety of drivers in your lineup this weekend. I will say that. So it depends on how you want to play this. Do you want to go aggressive right out of the gate, get some usage of your big guns, or do you want to go a little bit more conservative with playing some guys that are going to have some track position up at the front after the crazy Daytona 500 and how the grid lines up for that first stage specifically come Sunday? So let's get right into it, Kyle. We've got the bonus picks coming up later on as well. So that's a key element to the fantasy this season. It's not just the 6 drivers. The bonus picks have added emphasis this season. Yeah. So, all right. I'm the loser last week, so I might as well go first because, losers do go first here.
I feel like the first name is pretty obvious, though, to be fair.
All right. Well, do you want me to go in order of how I have them? Or
however you like, but I feel like we might as well get the obvious name out of the way.
All right, let's get the obvious one out of the way. Jase Elliott. It's so difficult to try and decide what you want to do with Jase Elliott this season. 6 road courses in the regular season. You get 10 usages per driver, and you imagine he's going to be doing well in the 1.5 mile, short tracks, you name it this season. He's a very diverse and well-rounded driver. But the Daytona road course and every element that he's ever driven on in this car, and even in the Rolex 24, he shined. He's done a masterful job around this circuit, and you just can't say no to Jase Elliott right now. He's going to be starting up at the front on pole. He's got an average finish over the last 8 road course races of 6.5, 5 victories, 7 top 10s, 231 laps led. Those numbers are unheard of in terms of domination in the NASCAR Cup Series on road courses. I don't know if you're going to play him for 6 races entirely over the course of the season. We have some new ones added in there. We got COTA and Road America. He raced on Road America back in his Xfinity Series days, but COTA is an interesting one. So we'll see on how we get to that side of things with the calendar, how we manage our Jase Elliott usages, because he's going to be strong everywhere, like I said. But Jase Elliott here, I'm imagining you have him in your lineup as well.
Yeah, you got to be way overthinking things if you don't have Jase Elliott in your lineup. The fact that he was able to go by and be that competitive at the end of the Busch Clash on worn tires against Ryan Blainey, everything there was remarkable. You're way overthinking things if you don't have Jase Elliott in the lineup. He was an easy one to kind of look at and save a usage for after the 500. Got some decent points out of there, was a top 5 overall points finisher. But when you're looking at the road courses, you got to use him here. He's just otherworldly in terms of talent tier. Worst comes to worst, you can always bench him. But then again, I feel like he's the easiest picks at the road courses at this point. So he's won 4 straight, I think it is now. Jase Elliott's an easy pick here. I think the other easy pick for me, at least, is going with kind of his running mate for most of these road courses recently, and that's Martin Truex Jr. At the Busch Clash at the same course, of course. He came from the back twice and wrecked from the lead. So he had the second fastest lap time at the Busch Clash as well. He showed the ability to come through the field, pass, be up front as well. So he's him and Jase Elliott are kind of the 2 big road course guys in NASCAR right now. So once again, I think you're overthinking things if you don't necessarily have those 2 in your lineup here.
Yeah, I've got Truex in my lineup as well. You did have him on your randomizer last week, but you saved the usage by benching him in the garage. So he still had 10 full usages here with Martin Truex Jr. So that's an added bonus there. Kind of wish that Truex did well, so then he had to use a usage. But smart play by Kyle there to garage him and save him for this weekend, because those 2 guys. Yeah. Okay, right. Way to drive that point home. I can't do anything about a lap 14 crash that takes out 3 of my guys, but Nonetheless, Truex,
Yeah.
over the last 8 races on road course, he's got an average finish of 4.63, so he leads the series in that respect. 2 wins, 7 top 10s, 142 laps led, and he starts 19th. So we saw that he has that ability to pass. He can go through the pack relatively quickly, as we saw in the Busch Clash, and those were still some pretty competitive cars there.
Yeah,
So.
and looking back to the road course last year at Daytona, obviously Jase Elliott won that close second from Denny Hammond, but let's not forget, Martin Truex Jr. was the guy for much of that race, and then a penalty put him in the back. He was able to recover up to third, but without that penalty, he's probably there at least challenging Elliott for the win, if not getting the win himself. So some bad strategy kind of cost them, the Truex team there, not going for stage points, then getting penalties and everything like that kind of put them behind. I think they learned from that lesson this year, and I think that they're going to be an easy pick to go out and get some big stage points and get a good finish.
We'll see what they do with that strategy with stage points as well this season. They prioritized the win last year, and that kind of bit them. So we'll see if they go for stage points or playoff points for winning a stage this year. Because it seemed like that worked out for Jase Elliott. Yeah, like I was just going to get to.
Yep.
If they get under 30 points here in this race, as it kind of leading up to the stages, if they don't have those stage points, I would maybe think about garaging them just to save them for a mile and a half where they are most likely, or something like that, to get stage points and get a 40-plus point finish, because you don't want to waste a Jase Elliott and Martin Truex Jr. usage this season. It may cost you in your overall point scoring for the race, but you can load them up with your bonus picks or stay away from them in that respect.
You got to play the long game.
Those.
Yep, with these usages, and that's the big thing about the current format with the road courses. It's the strategy with the stage finishes, and some people have prioritized pitting early and coming out with that track position instead of going out and getting those stage points. So that's a big thing to watch here, because you can have those big names like a Martin Truex Jr. who are out there leading laps up at the front, but if they don't get those stage points and they only finish like third or fourth, like last year, Truex was arguably the best car, maybe second best to Jase Elliott there, and he only got 37 points there. And when you look at season-long stuff, that was not one of his like top 10 performances, I would wager a guess, or if so, at the very, very bottom of that. So, that's going to be a big thing to watch for here. And I think outside of those two, I think that's where it gets very interesting from here on out, because you got to kind of weigh are they going to go for the stage points? Are they going to run well the entire race? You kind of have to weigh these here for these upcoming names here, I think.
Yes, and it comes down to that right now. Let's get into kind of the up in the air picks.
Here it starts to get interesting, yeah.
I'm going for my third pick, AJ Almandinger. I have to play him here this weekend just because he's not going to be running on these full-time schedules here. He's going to be starting 34th, but he's just been a traditionally fantastic road racer. We've seen it in the Xfinity Series with Colleague. Going to be trying it again this weekend with the 16 car. So I'm hoping for a good effort here from Almandinger. I'm not necessarily looking for stage points because he's not going for that. But if he can get a top 5 run or a top 7 run out of it, and he gets like 35-ish points or something around that number, I'm totally happy with that. I think Almandinger has the potential to do that just based off of pure talent, and I just can't bet against him right now. He seems like he's in pretty good form, and I like the way that AJ Almandinger looks on the road courses, so I'm going to go with him as my third pick.
I like that third pick. The one thing I had him on my short list here, because you're taking him, I'm not going to take him because of what you mentioned there in the stage points. And unless he's there in the top 5, top 7, he's probably not going to be somebody going for stage points. He's going to be somebody that pits before the stage breaks, goes out and tries to get that track position, because stage points literally have no meaning for them. It's just going out and getting the best finish they can. A little bit concerned with that, as well as the fact that we just don't know what Colleague's going to bring here and how competitive they're going to be. They could be anywhere from like a JTG, like what Almandinger used to have, where he won a race at a road course, or it could be something where they're much farther back in the pack. We just don't know what kind of they're going to bring, because we've only seen them at the Daytona 500 in the Cup Series. So I expect them to be fairly competitive, especially with Almandinger there. But with the stage points concerns, with just the unknown there, I'm not going to match you with the Almandinger one. I'm going to look elsewhere and see if maybe I can get some stage points and help myself out there. So I am going to go similarly with somebody that's coming from the Xfinity Series from last year up. I'm going to take Chase Briscoe in my lineup here. I'm going to take the swing on the young guy. The 14 was very strong at this track last year with Clint Boyer. Chase Briscoe stepping in, same team, same car, and he's arguably a better road course racer. If you look at kind of how he's come up through the series, getting a lot of that Ford development time, was very strong at the Daytona road course last year before he ended up crashing out, going head-to-head with Austin Cindric there. So I'll take the swing on Chase Briscoe. I'm not concerned about using him throughout the season. I think he's going to be a guy that's probably just a road course guy, maybe potentially for fantasy purposes, unless he shows otherwise throughout the season. But I'll take the swing on Briscoe. I think they might look for some more stage points as well, because they're a team that might be looking to point their way into the playoffs. Similarly, they could go for the strategy to be there for the win at the end, and it could backfire here for me. But I'm going to look at Chase Briscoe as my third entry into my fantasy lineup here.
Okay, interesting. I'm going to match you on that pick, Kyle, because I do have Chase Briscoe as one of my picks here. I just see a tremendous amount of value in him this weekend. Just like you said, a guy that we're not going to be playing and using the 10 usages out of. You might as well try and throw one at him here this weekend. It just makes too much sense. And he did pretty well in the road courses in the Xfinity Series over his tenure there. And like you said, that 14 car, Clint Boyer was my ace in the hole last season, and I don't have him this year. So hopefully Chase Briscoe can have similar success in that 14 car. He's the only SHR guy. I'll just throw that out there. He's the only SHR guy I'm looking at this weekend entirely.
Even remotely.
Do not, and we'll get to it later on, but do not use any of the other SHR cars this weekend. You can't. It's just, there's no reason to do that. And Chase Briscoe, he's going to be starting 18th in this one, so going to have to come up through the field a little bit. But I think for this one, he's going to be going for the stage points for Chase Briscoe. When you look at the position he's going to be in, stage points are going to be absolutely crucial for his season. He's going to be that kind of fringe guy as what we kind of projected in our season preview. He could miss the play, could or could not make the playoffs. So we'll see if they go that route. I'm hoping that he does, just for the sake of our fantasy lineups. But Chase Briscoe is my fourth guy for my Daytona road course.
Of course, he had to go and match me on that one. Okay, so we got three similar right now: Elliott, Truex, and Chase Briscoe. I'm gonna stray away from Almandinger. At least we got one difference there. I'm just looking at the three names that because I think I've trimmed it down to the three that I'm going to go with. I just need to be strategic in how I say it now. So maybe I can get you away from trying to play some defense here. So the next guy I'll say is someone that surprised quite a bit at this track last year. Got a top 5 here. Got some good finishes. I like his speed here. He showed pretty well at the Busch Clash as well. I'm going to give a shout to Roush Fenway's own.
Yeah.
Chris Buescher. He finished 8th in terms of the speed charts at the Busch Clash, lap 20, a 1 minute 57.65, which was better than William Byron, Tyler Reddick, Brad Keselowski, Alex Bowman. So some strong road course racers in there. Finished top 5 last year at this track. And I think he could be maybe some sneaky value. Again, he's a guy that you're not going to be looking at using usages for outside of super speedways or road courses probably this year. I think he's a guy that is kind of underrated in terms of some of the results he's gotten, specifically at road courses and this kind of stuff. So I'll give kind of my second kind of conservative pull to Chris Buescher here.
Okay. I thought you would go with Chris Buescher, to be honest, just based off of
I originally didn't have him in my lineup, is what I'll say. Originally, I had AJ Almandinger and somebody else's name written in here. I've swapped him out for a couple guys as we've kind of discussed things here. Okay.
Damn, this is where it gets really hard. 2 spots here left for myself. I have a name written down, but as I look at it more and more, I'm trying to strategically think on who my garage guy is going to be, because there's some guys in there that I'm really looking at. Okay. Damn, this is tough. Okay, I'm going to go for my my fifth guy. My fifth guy. All right. I'm going to ride the Daytona 500 hype train. I'm going to go with Michael Mcdowell as my 5th guy this weekend. He's starting second, going to be in good track position. He's traditionally been a good road course racer. and I'm not going to be using him most likely anywhere else besides the road courses this season. He ran top 10 last season and it got a 10th place finish. So ran well there. And that 34 car's got the momentum. He's starting up front, so he can probably keep his nose clean as long as he can run in that top 5 in that first stage, get some stage points, because I imagine they're going to be going for stage points, not going for the overall win. I think Michael McDowell could be someone you look at. Over the last 8 races on road course, he's got an average finish of 19th, 1 top 10. I just think that the momentum's on their side right now. I could just be riding the train. They could totally have a bad race. But traditionally, Michael McDowell is pretty good on these road courses, so I'm going to go with him as my 5th guy. Manage my usages here out of the gate.
I like the McDowell pick. He was on my short list here as a guy to potentially look at. But what I'll say is, had he not won the Daytona 500, he'd be in my lineup. Because he did, he isn't, because stage points are meaningless for them now. All they care about is playoff points, so that's stage wins and winning races. The stage points in general are literally meaningless to this team at this point. It's just stockpiling as much as they can into that playoff buffer going into the playoffs here for this team. And unless they've got an opportunity to win a stage and get a playoff point, I think that they're going to be a team that is loading up for that final stage and trying to be there at the end. And so for that reason, I don't think they go out for the stage points. And so for me, I'm staying away from McDowell, even though he's a great road course racer and might get a top 10 finish. Just look at last year. They finished 10th and finished with 27 points with no stage points there. So that's a team that I think will be going for the victory and will be playing strategy for that reason. And so I think that they might be maybe an underwhelming pick in terms of fantasy for that one. So he's an interesting pick for me. I like him going into this weekend, but for fantasy, I'm a little bit scared for that reason. I like you going with that pick, though, going with the 500 winner. For this next one, he's a guy that I picked as a breakout driver this season, and I think he's going to have some big results on road courses this year. He's consistently been strong in terms of one-lap speed. Hendrick Motorsports is strong as a whole in terms of road courses. I'm looking at William Byron here to have a good finish in this upcoming Daytona road course race. Finished top 10 last year, but the big thing for me is they know how to go about the strategy game. Last year they finished with 40 points, getting some big stage points there. Finished top 5 in terms of overall points scored, even though they finished 8th. I think they'll recognize early on if they don't necessarily have that key shot to win, they'll try and maximize their stage points here and try and build up as much as they can. If they don't win a race here and need to be looking at the playoffs on points again, I think that they know from last year with Chad Knaus there that maximizing their stage points will be huge. With William Byron here, I think he's going to be there at the end as well. He's my number 5 driver here in my lineup. I really feel bad because I really wanted to pick Byron here. Like, I'm going to be completely honest. Okay. Like, I had him as my 6th guy. That's fine. You can still go with it if you want. There's nothing saying you can't. We got 2 differences already.
Yeah, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to go with William Byron as well for my 6th guy. I for all the reasons you just pointed out, I had to go with another kind of heavy hitter to an extent here on the road courses that really does go for those stage points and plays the strategy right. And he seems like he keeps his nose clean on multiple occasions. He's going to be starting, I believe, 22nd in this race, so he's going to have to come to that midfield battle. But I think a lot of those guys in that midfield battle, because a lot of them got wiped out in the beginning of the race of the Daytona 500, because it is set based off of owner points and that average finish technology formula, whatever you want to say, for this upcoming weekend. I think William Byron is someone that could get up there, maybe not get those first stage points. He could potentially get them if some guys decide to pit and go for that long game there for going for the win at the end of the stage. But I think William Byron, I'm just going to ride the Chevrolets with Elliott and Byron. I think those two will be someone I look at really heavily for all the road courses this season. So, yeah, William Byron rounds up my Daytona road course lineup.
Okay. Number 6, I don't really know what to go with now. Because
walk me through your thought process here, because I'm usually in this position.
Yeah. So the way that the breakdown has gone here, we got 4 similar. I'm not taking Almandinger and McDowell. So the differences we've got here is Chris Buescher for one, and then whoever I go with for the second one. The name I originally had written down was a big dog in Ryan Blainey, but I don't want to use that usage for this one. I got 3 that I feel very confident in, and Elliott, Truex, Byron matching you there. And I want to see if maybe I can find some value elsewhere. So for that, I'm looking around. Matt DiBenedetto is a guy that intrigues me here, but he didn't have the best race last year in terms of finishing position or anything like that at this track. They got some stage points, but I need to see that team kind of return to form, or Matt DiBenedetto return to form at road courses before I go back to that well, because I've gone to it a few times and it's kind of bit me last year. So I want to wait and have them perform again before I go back to them. So looking around here, I'm looking at some of the fastest laps from the Busch Clash as well, maybe to point out some people for me. I don't want to use one of the big usages, so I'm not looking at Hamlin. I'm not looking at Kyle Busch, any of those guys. So I think I'm going to go with one Erik Jones here. He showed pretty well at the Busch Clash, ended up finishing 7th in terms of fastest laps. Last year, got some solid points at this track as well with Joe Gibbs. Got 31 points, an 11th place finish. But I think the thing for me here is just kind of that opening kind of speed that they showed from this Richard Petty team at this kind of track. I think with Erik Jones in the lineup, he's got a really strong skill set. He can go out and overperform at these kind of tracks, as we've seen in the past. And so when I'm looking at Erik Jones here, it's somebody that I'm not worried about using up usages for at 1.5 miles or any of those kind of traditional tracks with Richard Petty's kind of skill set there in that team. So I'll toss out Erik Jones. I think they might be someone that shows up maybe at the second stage, not necessarily the first stage, because they are starting pretty far back there.
37th.
Exactly. So they're not going to be in the equation early on. I think they might get a solid finish there and maybe get some stage points in the second stage. So I'll toss a shout to Erik Jones there.
Wow. I didn't think he would go. That's the only reason I didn't go from was the starting position. If he was starting mid-pack, I maybe would have used him. I was really looking at Austin Dillon for this one. Starting third in this one, ran the Rolex 24. I don't know. Maybe that 3 car could be the surprise caliber guy in that first stage. That 3 car, he didn't necessarily race the Daytona Road Course and the Cup Series car last season, but with Kazgrala behind the wheel of it finished 7th. So it's not the worst car in the world for the road courses, it seems. And Austin Dillon could be a sneaky shout, I think. And in my honorable mentions, as well as, if you want to add anything to that,
I'll say Tyler Reddick was somebody that I was thinking about more from RCR instead.
Really?
Because he finished 5th, I think, in the Busch Clash. Got a top 5.
Yeah,
there.
he did.
So when I'm looking at, especially because Austin Dillon didn't really show up at all in the Busch Clash as well, I think Reddick's a better road course racer than him. Dillon hasn't shown anything at road courses to this point, really, in his career. I know he's got the Rolex 24 under his belt. Maybe that helps him a little bit. But I think you'd have to be banking on him getting a really, really good first stage finish to be kind of a factor in fantasy here for myself.
Okay. All right. I have him in my honorable mentions, but if you want to go with Kyle's route with going a little bit against the grain on my side of things, then definitely go for it. Kyle Larson as well was someone I was looking at for honorable mentions because he's a good one-lap guy on road courses. He's not the greatest long-run driver.
He hasn't had the finishes yet.
No, but he could be a sneaky play this weekend. I just decided to go against it. I want to save him for some 1.5 mile usages.
Yeah, there's one specifically coming up soon that I think he'll definitely be in both of our lineups.
Yeah, you're going to be stupid if you don't play him at the Bristol Dirt. Okay, if you don't have Christopher Bell or Kyle Larson in your lineup for the Bristol Dirt, we'll just give that away. They're both of them are going to be in our lineups there. There's no joking around about that. So, the Busch brothers I had as honorable mentions as well. Kurt Busch is a sneaky good road course racer. I didn't want to go with Kyle Busch this weekend. I know he won the Busch Clash, but I like him more on the other road courses maybe this season because he's going to get more seat time in the other series for this one, as well as the 1.5 miles. I think we'll see an improvement from the 18 car this season.
That's the big thing. Yeah, and for looking at just kind of the strategy of it all, I think looking at this race, you go with two big hitters, maybe a third potentially, and then try and find some value elsewhere more so than you can at mile and a halves, and save kind of those like superstar lineups for those mile and a halves where it's much more certain where you're going to get like a 50 plus point guy and a couple 40 plus point guys versus a road course here where just looking at last year's results, I don't think that you would have expected some of those names to be up there ahead of some other of the big hitters. When you look at Clint Boyer being second in overall points. I know he's got the track record, but when you look at finish and the stage points and everything like that, you wouldn't think of him as being like one of like the two or three top guys to put in your lineup over a Martin Truex Jr. or Joey Logano or those kind of guys. So I think that's the strategy route, which is why I stayed away from like a Kyle Busch, even though he won the Busch Clash, or Ryan Blainey, who had the fastest lap at the Busch Clash. I think that he's a really strong guy to potentially throw in. But I went a little bit more conservative on this one, as did you. Had you got a bit more aggressive, I might have matched you on some of those, but
yeah, I couldn't go with Ryan Blainey here. He's an honorable mention for sure, was in contention at the Busch Clash, showed some pretty good speed. I just couldn't go with him. I think he's going to be a really impressive driver this season, and that starting position really hurts his kind of efforts there.
That's the big thing too.
And starting
I
27th, I just can't put Blainey in there.
Yeah, I think Blaney's a guy that's going to be going out, being in position for the win at the end, which probably means straying away from stage points, which is why I stay away from him at the end as well.
Chris Buescher was one. You have him in your lineup. I had him on honorable mentions. I thought he was a sneaky good pick, good value pick. So I imagine Chris Buescher could be loaded up in some lineups this weekend. Eric Jones was another one I had him on honorable mentions. So we're on the similar wavelength for this one once again. Just these kind of value picks, these guys that you're not going to be using much, if at all, this season, besides the road courses and these super speedways, are good usages for sure. And Denny Hammond was the one I told you about prior to the show with that question mark, because he ran second here in the previous race at the Daytona road course. But I used the usage for him in the Daytona 500. It worked out wonderfully for me in terms of the points. But I can't use them 2 weeks in a row. And when I look at the 11 car strengths this past season in 2020, there's no way I can play him at a road course here. It's not his strongest suit. And I like him much more at the mile and a half. And
playing
some
the
other
percentages,
tracks.
it's better to save him even though he's shown well at this track last year and looked solid at the Busch Clash as well. It's just playing the percentages and saving him for the tracks where it's more of a certainty that he's going to be kind of the favorite.
Yeah, Joey Logano was one I was looking at potentially as well, but I like him elsewhere. The big heavy hitters, I would rather go with a place that they're going to be more of an assuring pick of getting that full value of a usage out of a guy like Joey Logano. So my stay away froms this weekend, Bubba Wallace, Ross Chastain I have in there as well. I didn't really see him as a road course racer. Christopher Bell was another one. He's not traditionally a great road course racer. And the three remaining SHR guys of Harvick, Almirola, and Custer, do not use any of them this weekend, specifically Harvick. I know that that fifth place starting position may be a bit enticing. Don't believe it for 1 second. Harvick is not the greatest road course racer, and SHR as an entire program is not great, besides that 14 car usually.
Yeah, no, for sure. I would push back a little bit against Ross Chastain there because of the good starting position. He's shown really good passing statistics on road courses, but at the end of the day, will he be up there enough to kind of contend with some of these more certain kind of options in the mid-pack? I think that's a big question there for me. So, yeah, he's a guy that I'm fascinated to watch this weekend because he's always been in kind of the conversation in like the top 5-6 in Xfinity last year with some of those big names, but he hasn't been like up there and like passing or contending necessarily for the win with them. So he's one that I'm fascinated to watch kind of this weekend as well, because we've seen Chip Ganassi be strong at road courses as well in the past with certain guys, good starting position. So I'm fascinated to see them as well. Also, Christopher Bell, he's had some good results on road courses in Xfinity. Didn't really have any like standout performances on road courses last year. Only had the couple opportunities, to be fair. So that's another name that I'm watching and not really knowing what to expect for them coming up this weekend. For sure. Let's get into the bonus picks, Kyle. Let's get into the final part of the episode. Top Chevrolet finisher, top Ford finisher, top Toyota finisher, the winning manufacturer, winning organization, and stay tuned for our winner pick that we'll kind of incorporate with the trucks and Xfinity a little bit later on. But top Chevrolet finisher here. I'll lead this one off here.
It's pretty no-brainer here for your top Chevrolet guy, Jase Elliott. You just can't take the risk on not having him as your top Chevrolet guy. I just can't see him not being up there at the front unless something really bad happens to that 9 car. But Jase Elliott is my top Chevrolet guy.
Yeah, it's the easiest of all easiest picks. Jase Elliott, he's plus 200 odds to win the race as well, which is kind of crazy to think about, being that much of a favorite when you look at third best odds is plus 1,000. So he's far and away the top option. And when you look at the rest of the Chevys as well, is Almandinger going to be ahead of him? Is Byron going to be ahead of him? Is Larson going to be ahead of him? Unless Elliott wrecks out or has an engine problem or something, he's going to be the top Chevrolet. So, he's an easy pick there. Again, you're overthinking it if you go elsewhere.
Top Ford finisher, what do you got?
Top Ford finisher, this is an interesting one because
it's the toughest of all of them. It's the toughest of all of them.
Yeah, I think so as well, because you've got some intriguing names in this mix, and I'm specifically looking at probably the Penske guys of Blainey, Logano, probably looking at there. Maybe if you think somebody like Chase Briscoe has a standout performance. Matt DiBenedetto has had good performances on road courses in the past, but last year was kind of lackluster. So for this one, again, for these picks, I'm not overthinking it. I'm just kind of going with kind of the obvious one. I'm going Ryan Blainey here. He had the fastest lap at the Busch Clash. He was there at the end before he got spun out by Jase Elliott, of course. I was really impressed by him in that Busch Clash. I think they bring that speed here. I don't know what the strategy call is going to be. I think they're going to be there at the end, starting that deep in the field is going to be kind of playing the stage games and not necessarily looking for overall points and more just finishing position for them being there at the end of the race for the win. And so I think Blainey is probably your best play for Ford, and that's why I'm going with him.
I'm not going with Ryan Blainey for my top four guy. I'm going to try and stick with I'm trying to get full value here out of a Chase Briscoe usage, and I'm going to say that he is my top Ford finisher.
Ooh, okay.
I initially had Joey Logano in there, but I went with Chase Briscoe. I don't know. I just kind of taking a swing on this one. Ford is the one that's most up in the air just based off of there's not really that it guy on road courses for that entire manufacturer. Yeah. So I'm going to go with the guy that I think could potentially be an upset pick this weekend, and that's Chase Briscoe. It's a lot of pressure. It's only his second career Cup Series start, but I'll take the swing and see if I can maybe get a little bit of a 5 extra bonus points here with Chase Briscoe. So top Toyota finisher. I imagine you probably have this guy as well. Martin Truex Jr. Is my top Toyota finisher.
Oh,
no,
strange.
I don't have Ty Dillon. No,
it's Truex, and just the raw pace that they showed in the Busch Clash and last year as well. If they get the strategy right and they don't have any penalties, it'll be probably a battle between him and Elliott for the win here. We didn't get it last year because Truex had some kind of underwhelming strategy calls, not going for the stage finish, and ended up costing them with the speeding penalty, put them behind because it happened at the end of the stage as well, and kind of screwed over their final stage. They got up to third in the end, but didn't have a top 5 point stay, and were kind of disappointed in that overall finish. I'm looking at them to maybe revise some of that strategy, pick up those stage points, maximize what you can from the race, and then be there at the end. So Truex, easy pick for Toyota here, I think.
These next 3 are the big ones. The winning manufacturer, the winning organization, and the race winner, obviously. Wait on that one. But the winning manufacturer and organization, do you want to go full out on one of the 2 favorites of Truex or Jase Elliott, or do you want to split the difference? That's what it comes down to. Do you want to go with the Chevrolet or Toyota, basically, for your manufacturer? Not to say that Ford can't win it, but they're definitely not the favorite to win it. And then winning organization here, do you want to go maybe Hendrick, because they do have a dual threat there with potentially Byron, Larson.
Bowman as well is a sneaky guy on road courses.
That starting position is the only reason I would say. He wasn't the greatest on the Daytona road course as well.
No, he's a Roval guy, yeah.
He's a Roval guy. Or do you want to go with Joe Gibbs Racing? Hamlin, Kyle Busch, Truex. Those are the guys you're going to be looking at with
3
those.
Pretty good ones there.
Yeah. So what are you thinking here for your winning manufacturer first off?
Chevrolet. I'm not going to overthink this one. As I've kind of said the entire time, for your big picks, don't overthink it, especially this early in the season. You don't need to try and game the system yet. Play the long game. Just go with the easy picks early on. Maybe mix it up with some of those kind of conservative picks. Maybe go with some other ones and try to find some value. But yeah, I'm just kind of go out and maximize for what I think is probably the easiest pick here. I'm looking at Jase Elliott, and so I'm going with Chevrolet. I think William Byron's also an interesting potential guy here, but it's Jase Elliott all the way, I think. And so I'm going to look to maximize here with Chevrolet.
Yeah, same here. I have to.
Team as well, or are you mixing it up for that one?
I don't know. I don't know.
Fair enough.
It's clear when I'm looking at Hendrick or Gibbs, because if Elliott doesn't win, then you're wasting a whole bunch of usages. And if someone like Truex is there, then you could potentially get at least a little bit of a salvaging out of it with the bonus picks. But if he does, you can get a full Jase Elliott usage here with really good points day and your bonus picks as well. Like it's tough. Because I don't know what you've done here. Because if you've gone with the full out and you could just win off of the stupid bonus pick is what's going to drive me nuts. Winning organization. Just let me make sure that this is 10 points, right? This is it could have a major
15?
swing. It's not 15. I think race winner.
I think
15.
it's 10.
Yeah, it's 10 points. Man, that's a stage win right there in terms of points for the week.
Yeah, it is.
Damn, that's tough. Oh my God.
Okay, so team we got now, winner pick, important to note, we have to have different winner picks, and because I won last week, you get the first winner pick. So, yes, it does make sense for you to pick first here. I just wanted to make sure that it's fair for the rest of the way.
Okay, you know what? I'll go with Gibbs. I'm going to say Joe Gibbs Racing. I like their I'm gonna go with the risky pick here. I'm gonna say that there's potential of Truex. I like the speed that he showed in the Busch Clash. I think he was faster than Jase Elliott, to be honest, in that race. So, and I think Truex is right there with him in terms of compete level. We just haven't when the 19 car makes too many mistakes in a race to usually be competitive with Jase Elliott. They just kind of minimize the risk and stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go with just to play it safe here. I'm going to try and split the difference there. If it's not Truex, Kyle Busch could maybe get up there. You never know. He could go back to the Daytona road course. I think the 3 Gibbs cars compared to the 2 Hendrick cars, I would say with what Byron and Jase Elliott make that a little bit more of a better fit for me to take Joe Gibbs Racing here. So, yeah, I'm going to split the difference. I'll go with Chevrolet, and I'll go with Gibbs.
I like it. For myself, looking forward to what I would suspect to be your winner pick, unless you go crazy with it. I'm going to lock in Hendrick Motorsports here. Maximize Jase Elliott for the manufacturer and team, because I'm anticipating you having the first race winner pick. You'll take Jase Elliott, and so I have to go elsewhere for that. And so I'm looking at maximizing for Jase Elliott for the other ones. But before we get to our Cup Series winner pick, I think we got to do Trucks and Xfinity and lead up to it.
For sure. All right. I'll take the first one here with the Truck Series. Man, this is going to be a good one. I'm really looking forward to this race.
Yeah. And of course, we're doing this now, like 30, 45 minutes before the race starts. So when you're listening to this or watching this, the race will either be on or have been finished. But just to note, in case we do get the race winner pick right, we're recording this before the race.
They are going to be starting in the wet, it seems. So going to be starting maybe on rain tires. So that could be a potential curveball being thrown in there. But for me, I'm going with Rafael Lessard to win this one.
Doing it.
He finished third in this race last season for KBM. He starts 12th. GMS is very good on these road courses. Wow. Sheldon Creed won this race last season. I'm going to go with Rafael Lessard. I like that starting position, 12th. He's going to have to work his way up there a little bit. And Canadians are always good in the rain, so maybe he can get off to a flying start here. So I'm going to go lock it in. Rafael Lessard wins the Truck Series race at the Daytona road course.
I absolutely love that pick, of course. He was one of the 2 names that I'm for sure watching in this race. The other one that I'm keeping an eye on is Kaz Gralla with Young's Motorsports. They're stepping into Chris Wright's truck for this weekend in the Truck Series there. We saw him at this track finish top 10 in the Cup Series, for crying out loud, so we know this guy's good. He's not my race winner pick, though. That's a little too far out there for me. I'm going to say John Hunter Nemechek gets it done. He's a strong road course guy. We saw it at Mosport in the past here up in Canada in the Truck Series with some fantastic finishes with Nemechek involved. I like KBM at road courses as well, as we saw last year. Rafael Lessard had some strong runs. Tagliani had some strong pace before he ended up wrecking it. And Christian Atkins was solid as well. So I'm looking at John Hunter Nemechek to get the win in the Truck Series race.
Which brings us Xfinity Series then
to Xfinity, and I'll lead the way here. I'm going to go with a guy that is in your lineup. That's right. You did go with him. I'm gonna go a little bit different. I'm gonna take AJ Almandinger to get the win here. Okay. Well, no, if you want, I'll take Austin Cindric, I guess.
You know what? Yeah, you take him. You get the honors of that. But I did have Almandinger written down. You get first priority on that one.
You had him written down, so I'll take Austin Cindric instead.
No, I'll take Cindric. That's fine.
No. Hey, I got first pick. I
shouldn't have said.
I'm going Cindric. Hey, look, it's going to be probably one of those two. If somebody else gets involved, it's probably because there was a crash or something between those two. But I'm very much looking forward to that head-to-head battle.
Yeah, I'm going with Almandinger then. I like the practice that he's going to be getting up to the Sunday race there. I think that could be crucial for him, just getting a feel for things. He's going to be one of the only guys that has that advantage going into this weekend, knowing the track surface, the most frequent up to the race start time. So I like that advantage. That was part of my reasoning behind Almandinger in my lineup as well. I'm going to go with him to win the Xfinity Series race here and get his season back on track here at the Daytona Road Course, which leads us to the Cup Series winner pick.
The Cup Series.
Whatever you pick here, it's just going to not be Jase Elliott because I'm taking him to win this race this weekend. I just can't not do it. The guy is just too good on these road courses. It's self-explanatory. Everybody's picking him to win it. Everybody's predicting him to have a good run, if not winning it. So I'm going to go with him to lessen the blow. I went with Chevrolet, went with Gibbs, and I'm going to just try and split the difference here, cover all my bases here, and go with Jase Elliott as my race winner.
Yeah, so if Elliott wins, you get 15 points for the win and then 10 points for manufacturer. So you get 25 here. If Elliott wins, then I'm getting 20 out of the bonus points. So if Elliott wins, you're still up on the bonus points.
But if he doesn't,
then it's a little bit different because I'm getting the 15 instead if he doesn't win, because it's probably going to be Martin Truex Jr. if he does not win. Yeah. He is my race winner pick here. Look, it's MTJ, old Colburn. He's not like my guy anymore because Colburn isn't there. It was mainly the Colburn connection really for him, but I still got a soft spot for the guy. I hope he has a better return here because look, last year the strategy calls and then the penalty kind of killed their day. They got up to third still, which was kind of crazy, but just wasn't there at the end. We were robbed of that Elliott versus Truex once again. I hope we get that battle here at the Daytona Road Course. We saw a battle at the Busch Clash, ended with fireworks. I hope we get a similar finish here this weekend. I'm taking Martin Truex Jr. for the win.
Good picks. We kind of went even there basically on what we're going for. It just makes the most sense. I'm fascinated, by this fantasy battle. It's a good rivalry matchup this weekend. You got your two core, then you got your Byron. Then after that, we can go a little bit our separate ways. And I think that's the great thing about road course racing is that you can have so many different options on how drivers play their strategy. So
for our lineups here, we're looking at, for myself, Jones and Buescher versus Almandinger and Mcdowell for yourself. And then for the bonus picks, we're looking at Blainey versus Briscoe, Hendrick versus Gibbs, and then Truex versus Elliott. So there's some fun stuff to watch here coming up for a fantasy battle on Sunday.
For sure. Any final thoughts before we wrap up another edition of the Green Flag, Kyle?
Fun weekend coming up. It's very strange that we're going to be getting a road course this early in the season because it's usually a mid-season thing that we get with Sonoma coming up. But we didn't get that last year. So last year especially, we waited way into the season before we got our first road course. Very different this year with how many we got on the schedule. Second race of the season. So not even getting a mile and a half in or anything before we go to a super speedway and then a road course. Very different to say, but I'm excited for this weekend. I think there's going to be some really fun races, some really great battles starting tonight / when you've probably watched this already. It's done with the Truck Series. Super amped for that race coming up, but the Cup Series, I think we could see some fireworks coming up for that one.
I would love some fireworks. I think that always spices things up.
It depends if it ends at night, really, to get the firework finish, but...
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I'm looking forward to it. Like Kyle said, going to be some really solid races, hopefully on deck. Better than the actual full Cup Series race that we had last season in 2020.
750 horsepower, man.
I think there's the signs for this to be a better race, definitely. All signs point to that for the Busch Clash that we saw. So For this episode, man, it's been a good one. It's been a great one.
Fun one.
Make sure to go follow us on Instagram at The Green Flag. Make sure to go follow us on Twitter at The Green Flag Pod. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it. We really appreciate all your guys' support over this past week over Speed Week. It was a lot of fun to do that, but we are back to 2 episodes per week now, kind of whenever we get the chance to. School's busy. We're going to be going back in full swing with that, but it's going to be a fun one. For this episode, I've been Lukas Wacker. He's been Kyle Cushman. Signing off for now. We will talk to you on Tuesday, Monday, whenever it is, to recap the Daytona Road Course weekend. Enjoy the racing, everybody.